we will be going to install more memory to this computer system. Currently, this computer system has 2 gigabytes of RAM. And we're going to upgrade it to 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is the maximum this computer can hold. First of all, before we start the actual installation, it is important that we check the specifications of the computer system on which we will be working. In order to do this, we're going to access the BIOS. We switch on the computer and press the necessary keys to enter the BIOS. We move on to memory information, and we can see that we have 2 memory modules of 1 gig each. We're going to exit the BIOS and allow the computer to switch on. Make sure to prepare all the necessary resources required for this upgrade. In this case, we will be needing the anti-static mat, anti-static wristband, an air compressor, a toolbox including different types and sizes of screwdrivers which might be needed during the installation. And finally, the memory module, which in this case is a 2 GB DDR2 RAM. We also need to consider possible tests which can be used to ensure that the installed memory module is functional and recognized by the computer system. This time we will be using the BIOS to carry out such tests. It is also important to take note of the serial number for the memory module, which we will be installing. We shall also consider whether a backup of important data is necessary. Generally, backups are useful when installing a hard disk drive, and therefore, in this case, we won't be doing any backups of important data. It is also important to read any instructions provided with the component which is to be installed. Once all the necessary resources are prepared, we can start the actual installation. It is important that first we make sure that the computer is switched off. In this case, we will be shutting down the computer. The plug, and remove the plug from the wall socket. Cautiously, we can start detaching the cables from the back of the computer tower. It is important to start off with the power cord. Having removed all the cables, we can then place the computer tower on the workbench. Having placed the computer tower on the workbench, making sure that we have ample space where to work, we can remove the case. In this particular situation, the tower is a clip-on, so we won't be using any screwdrivers to remove the side panel. In order to prevent electrostatic discharge from damaging the components, it is important to attach the anti-static mat to the case, as well as the anti-static wristband. It is important to wear the anti-static wristband. Then we shall be removing the memory module from its packaging and placing it on the anti-static mat. These are the slots where we shall be installing the memory module. As you can see, currently we have 2 memory modules of 1 GB each. While installing the RAM module, it is important to first align the module with the motherboard slot, making sure that the notch is properly aligned in its position as to avoid any damages. Then apply adequate force in order to clip the memory module in place. It is important not to apply excessive force as to avoid damages such as breakages. Using an air compressor or a brush, clean the tower in order to remove any dust which might have accumulated by time. Having cleaned the system, we need to remove the anti-static mat and anti-static wristband in order to close the tower case. We can then move the tower back to its place in order to test that it is functional. Finally, attach all the cables back into their ports. It is important to attach the power cord at the very end. Plug in the plug in the wall socket and turn it on. Now that all the cables are attached to the computer, we can test that the RAM is successfully installed. During preparation, we decided that we shall be using the BIOS to test the installation of the RAM. Therefore, we shall turn on the computer, and while it is booting up, we shall press the right key in order to access the BIOS. Now that we are in the BIOS, we can move on to memory information, and we can see that we have now 3 memory modules. The newly installed memory module is in memory bank 2, meaning that the RAM has been successfully installed and recognized by the computer system. We can then exit the BIOS and allow the computer to switch on.